Celestine, and the title of my talk today is Feminist-in-Progress. I never considered myself a feminist. I don't wear bras, that's what they do, right? I don't think men are all that bad, and I really don't think that I have that much to say about my vagina all the time. So I always hesitated to define myself as a feminist in any context because I had built it up so that there were these stigmas and stereotypes that I thought were seemingly synonymous with the label of feminism. So at first it was that I didn't want to call myself a feminist. I didn't think it was very me. I shave my legs, I like when doors are opened for me. Doesn't that mean that I'm not a feminist? And I had thought that that term, I had erroneously assumed that that term was reserved for a particular type of woman. I thought that that term was for the revolutionary, trailblazing woman. I admired those individuals, but I didn't think that I had the right to call myself a feminist. I didn't think I deserved it. So what I've learned since then is that feminism is a whole lot more simple than that. Feminism is about the basic belief, the radical belief, that women are people. That women and men are equal, and they deserve to be treated as such by our society, by our laws, as equals. That's all feminism really is. And if you can get behind that, you're a feminist too. And it doesn't matter what gender, what sexuality, what disabilities, what race, what any of all those labels, you can be a feminist too. There are natural, inherent freedoms that belong to everyone. And to me, feminism is about recognizing and acknowledging each individual's humanity. And believing that my stay-at-home full-time mom is a role model does not make me any less of one. Liking glitter, putting on makeup, and wearing dresses does not make me either. Wanting sex does not make me any less of a feminist, and neither would a short skirt. I am allowing myself to call myself a feminist because my feminism does not have to resemble others. My feminism will definitely not reflect the misguided notions that feminists are supposed to be this and that or this and that, because feminism is not about promoting a particular type of woman. It is the embodiment of choice, allowing women to be whatever they want to be. I am allowing myself to declare myself as a feminist, and if you can get behind the same ideas, you can too. I am a feminist, and that doesn't automatically mean I am pro anything else but pro change. Hence, feminist in progress. At the same time, being a feminist is also really complicated because actually being one, participating in this ongoing dialogue that should stretch across geographical borders and rising against the form of any violence against women is not an easy check off the to-do list. But last year, I was at a panel that Eve Ensler was speaking at, the creator of the Vagina Monologues, and she said something that really stayed with me. We have got to stop diminishing ourselves and the power we have. We have got to stop diminishing ourselves and the power we have, because who else here has ever said to themselves, what difference could I make? What could I do? Maybe a small one, maybe a big one, maybe even the final one. It's still a difference, even if it's felt globally or by just one person. And once I realized that that was enough, I was ready to embrace this mission, this identity, this philosophy. It began with the Vagina Monologues. It should have began a long time before that. It could have began with a conversation with my best friend when she convinced me that this number game, that the number of sexual partners you're with does not define your value, it does not define your self-worth, and nobody should be able to use that to limit your sexual expression. It could have began with another conversation, with another friend, who sat me down after a week of hearing people ask me, "Are you sure you said no?" And he sat me down and told me, "It is not your fault. What happened to you is not your fault." It could have began in any of those instances, but instead it began in a room, in my living room, with a collective of 14 intelligent, beautiful, and extraordinarily brave women sharing their own vagina monologues. See, I had been in this project in 2013 as an actor, and I had seen my role as just that. It was a play to me. I really wanted to act, and I took it on without thinking that it could ever impact me. And the next year, when I was offered the position of the director, I took it on because, again, it was still just a play. But I had done my research to realize that there was a power there that I could harness, a power there that I wanted to harness. I wanted it to be more than a play for my cast of 14 girls. And so one night, I asked them to share their own vagina monologues. And we did. Sitting around a table over a few bottles of wine, we talked about our stories. There were stories of falling in love for the first time, stories of never having experienced an orgasm, stories of feeling insecure about our bodies, but mostly there were stories about sexual assault. And a lot it was enough. One would have already been too many, but you would have been surprised that over half of us had stories to tell about sexual assault. See, there was a number-numbing effect that I was a part of, that we are all subject to. I can tell you statistics to try to make you care. Like every 107 seconds, another American is sexually assaulted. Like 68% of rape cases go unreported, and 98% of rapists never spend a day in prison. Or I can frame it in a way that you may better be able to understand. Like, think of 5 women you know in your life. Your roommate, best friend, sister, colleague, neighbor. One of these 5 women will experience sexual assault in her lifetime. But even then, it is still all too easy to forget that these rape cases are not made up of names and numbers, he said, she said. They are experienced by people, real people. And sitting at that table, thinking about all of these stories that I was hearing, I didn't have any more reason not to identify as a feminist. I think back on that night a lot, and I think of the way they told their stories. I think of the tremor in their voices as they tried to continue. I think of the way they hadn't practiced holding back their tears quite enough. I think of the way the disbelief still registers across their faces. And I cannot not identify as a feminist anymore. All the reasons that I had thought of before, not that they were ever valid, but now could not hold me back from knowing that this is why I am a feminist. And yes, it is just a label to some. The problem isn't what, because 82% of American women surveyed say that they do believe in the social, economic, and political equality of men and women. But only 20% identify as feminists, often with contradictory things like, I'm not a feminist, but continuing with statements that do espouse feminist values and beliefs. The problem is why we don't identify as feminists. The word feminist only has the power to discriminate between those who believe in basic equality and those who don't. And it doesn't mean anything more than that. And every chance we have to be able to make that clear, we should take, because feminists are the reason that I am here right now. Feminists are the ones who have fought for our right to vote, fought for our reproductive rights and equal pay, tackled rape culture on college campuses and outside of them. Feminists have been at the forefront of every single fight for social justice. And to reject that word, to reject that label like it is nothing, is to erase a decades-long social movement by those who are seeking to unite us all. So let me clarify another misconception about feminism. Feminism is not only for women. A lot of men feel that they cannot be feminists because feminism shares the same prefix as feminine. But feminism declines to exclude femme from the word because trying to erase the feminine is negatively prejudicial. It's our way of trying to assert that masculinity is better than femininity when both of these are just social constructs that society has allowed us to believe in. They're nothing but gender norms and stereotypes that govern the way that we act when we should be free to express in whatever way we want. Phrases like, don't be a pussy, grow a pair, be a man, are as damaging to little boys as they are to little girls. And feminism seeks to change all of that. So let's talk about meninism. Meninism. 50% of meninists do seek positive change, and they want the changes that are already actually on the feminist agenda. The other 50% are most likely misandrist, misogynistic egomaniacs who want to undermine the feminist movement. And 100% of feminists are people who have forgotten what feminism really means and boil it down to that simple definition. Because feminists, too, want to validate, they want to validate the already too invisible narrative of male rape victims, including cases in which women are the attackers. They want to obliterate gender norms. They want to eradicate the stereotypes about hypermasculinity, and they want to end the objectification of all genders. Feminism is for men, and it's just for everyone. Someone once said to me, "I have never met a feminist who doesn't fight for everybody else's rights too." And that really stayed with me and helped me in my Feminist-in-Progress journey. Because feminism cannot exist independently from intersectionality. Intersectionality is a feminist sociological theory put forth by UCLA's professor Kimberly Crenshaw, who also helped create the Vagina Monologues. Intersectionality holds that the classical conceptualization of oppressive systems like homophobia, racism, sexism, transphobia, ableism, ageism, all of these actually interrelate, that they do not act independently of each other. They form relationships, and through that form a system of oppression that reflects an intersection of multiple forms of discrimination, which means to say that men do not easily see sexism. Able-bodied people do not easily see ableism. Cis people do not easily see transphobia, and white people do not easily see racism. So I, even as a woman, cannot always, will not be able to fully understand the experiences of a black woman or a lesbian woman. That even though we share women, there are all these different forms of oppression that play into our experiences, and we cannot think that we could be an authority on another person's experience. We have to believe that people are the experts of their own experiences. We have to decenter our perspective so that our feminism does not revolve around ourselves or the people around us and what we need. We have to only use our privilege to bring the attention and then pass the mic onto the marginalized voices that everyone should have been listening to in the first place. We are unlearning and relearning, deconstructing and constructing meaning, and it is tough. We are in this process of trying to change meaning, hence the feminism in progress. There's no room for perfectionism in feminism, which means to say that we have to be willing to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes, which is why I identify as a feminist in progress. It's a process. Feminist in progress is a disclaimer. It is an admission of guilt for everything that I've said before, for every time that I have suggested that a man is a man based on how many sexual partners he has, and then use the word slut in a derogatory manner to police another woman's sexual expression and to suggest that one is different from the other. For every time that I hear of a rape case and I subconsciously wonder or intentionally blame the victim for what she was wearing or how many drinks she had, as if that plays any sort of a factor in the rapist's defense or lack thereof. For every time I accused someone of being too sensitive, not understanding that their experience is different from mine, and interrupting them to say, well, I don't think that's what it's like, I've never had that, when instead I should have been checking my privilege, sitting down and listening first. Saying that I am a feminist in progress is an acceptance, an ownership of my experiences before I learned all these feminist concepts and theories. It is forgiving myself for all the experiences I had before I really understood what consent means. That not saying no does not mean yes, because two negatives does not make a positive. That consent can be retracted at any stage of the process, because I have the right to make this uncomfortable if I am uncomfortable. That consent is not a given, but it must be given. No matter how long you've been dating or how many times you've had sex before, it is never a given, but must be given verbally. Feminist in Progress is an apology for all the mistakes that I may continue to make, and a request for everyone around me to hold me accountable for the words and actions I say, even when it makes me feel uncomfortable and threatened and challenged. It is a reminder to myself that I need to try harder, to make sure that my feminism is not a one-size-fits-all feminism, that my feminism is intersectional, that my feminism is inclusive and inviting of others to be feminists too. I want to say that my feminism in progress is the perspective. It's a perspective that I sometimes forget to make, that everyone is in different stages with their feminism. I all too often forget of the days before I really understood what feminism means and jump to assumptions about others, because more often than not, people just don't know any better, including myself. And maybe this is optimistic, but damn it, I want to be optimistic. Maybe everyone is a feminist in progress, and they just don't know any better yet. Thank you.